A tariff is a tax placed on goods from another country, making imports more expensive. The main goal is to protect local businesses by encouraging people to buy domestic products. For example, if a foreign toy costs $10 and a local one costs $12, a $3 tariff on the foreign toy makes it $13. Suddenly, the local toy is cheaper. Tariffs have been used throughout history as a tool for governments to manage international trade. But their effects are rarely simple. Countries hit with tariffs often retaliate, leading to trade wars. This can drive up prices for everyone and hurt businesses on both sides. While tariffs can help some industries, they can also create new problems, like higher costs for consumers. Understanding tariffs is key to following modern trade news. When a leader announces new tariffs, it signals a major shift in how a country does business globally. These decisions impact companies, small businesses, and even the prices you see at the store. Tariffs can lead to both positive and negative outcomes for a country's economy. The effects ripple through supply chains, jobs, and consumer prices. Trade policy is never just about economics, it's about politics too. Every tariff decision is a gamble with real-world consequences. That's why tariffs are always headline news. The story of tariffs is the story of how nations compete and cooperate in a global marketplace. In early 2025, President Trump announced sweeping new tariffs as part of his economic plan. A 20% tax was placed on many Chinese imports, with additional tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico. The administration argued these moves would protect American industries and jobs, making U.S. products more competitive. Tariffs on Canada and Mexico, set at 25% for certain items, were also linked to border security concerns. This approach tied trade policy directly to national security, sparking controversy and uncertainty. For decades, the US, Canada, and Mexico enjoyed mostly free trade under NAFTA and the USMCA. The new tariffs challenged these relationships, raising costs for businesses that relied on cross-border trade. Companies now face tough choices: absorb higher costs, find new suppliers, or pass expenses to customers. The America First strategy aimed to bring manufacturing back home and force trading partners to change their practices. Whether this would work was hotly debated among economists and business leaders. One thing was clear: the tariffs would reshape North American trade. The American food industry in particular braced for major changes. Every link in the supply chain was suddenly under pressure. The world watched to see how this bold new strategy would play out. After the tariffs were announced, rumors exploded online. One viral story claimed Tyson Foods was shutting down all U.S. production because of the tariffs. Panic spread about job losses and food shortages. But Tyson quickly debunked the rumor, assuring the public it was not closing its American operations. The truth was more nuanced. Tyson was affected by tariffs, but it was adapting, not collapsing. The company had contingency plans for trade disruptions and was prepared to adjust its strategy. Tyson's leadership projected calm, stating the tariffs were manageable and not a threat to their overall health. The company focused on stability, not panic. This episode highlighted how fast misinformation can spread and how complex trade issues really are. Headlines can suggest crisis, but the real story is often about careful planning and adaptation. Tyson's response was about navigating new rules, not surrendering to them. Employees, investors, and customers needed to understand this distinction. The gap between rumor and reality was wide. In the digital age, facts can get lost in the noise. Tyson's story was one of resilience, not retreat. It was a lesson in how companies weather economic storms. Tyson Foods didn't panic. They executed a well-prepared plan. With a large share of exports going to Mexico, Tyson anticipated possible retaliatory tariffs. Their strategy: redirect products to other international buyers if a market became too costly. Flexibility was key. Financially, Tyson's CEO reassured investors that the impact of tariffs was already built into forecasts. Surprisingly, Tyson even raised its profit outlook, reporting one of its best quarters in years. The company's resilience defied expectations. Tyson also reviewed its supply chain, since some materials like feeder cattle and hogs came from Canada. The company sought new suppliers and renegotiated terms to minimize cost increases. Every move was calculated to protect profits and keep production running. Instead of dramatic cuts, Tyson made strategic adjustments. The goal: neutralize the financial impact of tariffs. This proactive approach was the opposite of panic. Tyson's story was about adaptation, not defeat. It showed how preparation and flexibility can turn a crisis into an opportunity. In the face of economic pressure, Tyson stayed ahead of the curve. Tyson wasn't alone. Food and beverage giants across America scrambled to respond to tariffs. Brown-Forman, maker of Jack Daniel's, faced not just tariffs but consumer boycotts in Canada. Some stores even pulled U.S. products from their shelves, amplifying the impact. Campbell's Soup warned that tariffs would raise the cost of steel and aluminum for their cans, and canola oil from Canada. Higher costs meant either slimmer profits or higher prices for consumers. Coca-Cola faced pricier aluminum for cans but called it a manageable challenge. Not all companies were equally affected. General Mills, for example, sourced 95% of its ingredients domestically, insulating it from most tariff effects. The impact of tariffs depended on each company's supply chain and reliance on imports. Some faced major challenges, others barely noticed a change. The industry's response was a patchwork of winners and losers. Every business had to rethink its strategy for the new trade reality. The tariffs forced a reckoning across the food sector. Adaptation was the name of the game. America's trading partners didn't sit still. They hit back or sought compromise. China, targeted by the 20% tariff, retaliated with a 15% tax on U.S. agricultural exports like beef, pork, and soybeans. This put pressure on American farmers and escalated the trade dispute. Canada initially planned a 25% retaliatory tariff but paused, opting instead to address U.S. security concerns. Canada announced a $1.3 billion plan to strengthen border security and appointed a fentanyl czar. These moves aimed to de-escalate the conflict through negotiation. Mexico also chose negotiation over confrontation. President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to deploy 10,000 troops to the border, addressing U.S. concerns about migration. In response, the U.S. paused its planned tariffs on Mexican goods for 30 days, opening a window for further talks. These international responses showed that tariffs spark both retaliation and diplomacy. Governments can't impose tariffs without expecting a reaction. Some responses escalate conflict, others seek resolution. The future of the trade dispute hinged on ongoing negotiations. Political will and compromise would determine the outcome. The world watched as leaders tried to find common ground. Every move shaped the global economic landscape. The stakes were high for all sides. Tariffs are always about jobs, protecting some, risking others. The goal was to boost U.S. manufacturing and shield workers from foreign competition. For some, this meant more security. For others, new uncertainty. Companies relying on imported parts faced higher costs, threatening production and jobs. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries hurt American exporters, especially farmers. Tyson's strategy aimed to avoid layoffs by redirecting exports, keeping factories running. But if trade wars escalated, even big companies could be forced to cut jobs. The impact on workers was mixed. Some gained, others lost. The labor market became a patchwork of winners and losers. The final outcome depended on how these effects balanced out. Tariffs were a high-stakes gamble for American workers. While businesses scrambled, consumers felt tariffs at the checkout. Tariffs are taxes that often get passed down as higher prices. Groceries, electronics, clothing, and cars all became more expensive. Produce from Mexico, like avocados and tomatoes, saw price hikes. Even small increases in grocery bills added up for families. The Tax Foundation estimated tariffs could cost the average U.S. household over $800 in 2025. This hidden tax hit low-income families hardest. The trade-off helped American producers, but at a cost to consumers. Was it worth it? That became a major debate. For many, the real impact of tariffs was felt in their wallets, not the headlines. Trade policy became personal at the supermarket. The 2025 tariff turmoil was a real-world test of corporate resilience. Tyson Foods, despite rumors, didn't shut down. It adapted. Careful planning and flexible strategy allowed Tyson to weather the storm. Redirecting exports and strong financial management kept the company stable. Other food giants faced different challenges depending on their supply chains. The impact of tariffs was uneven, creating winners and losers across the industry. The broader lesson: trade policy has far-reaching, unpredictable effects. Tariffs aimed to protect jobs but also raised prices and risked export markets. International responses, retaliation, and negotiation showed the complexity of global trade. For Tyson, the immediate crisis passed, but uncertainty remains. A prolonged trade war could still disrupt supply chains and jobs. The story of Trump's tariffs and Tyson's response is a lesson in global interconnection. Every trade decision sends ripples through businesses, workers, and consumers worldwide.